Hello, and welcome to Immortal Phoenix Rek'sai version 1.1. I've made a few small changes to the previous deck list, and just wanted to talk about them, see if I can get some opinions from the internet, and I don't know, maybe just put some more resources out there for people that might want to play this deck as well. As always, I want to note that I am not a particularly amazing player. I would say you're a very mid-level Nexus Knight skirmish kind of player. But this deck is fun, so we'll get right into it. This is my current deck list. Still a 7 red, or 7 fury, 5 order, 5 yellow runes. I have Minefield, Candlelit Sanctum, and Zonwarrens. I believe Candlelit is new. I can't remember what I took out. Oh, I think it was Arena's Greatest that I took out. Zonwarrens is staying the same as the Game 1 Battlefield. It's just solid. I wouldn't necessarily say that any deck benefits from Zonwarrens going blind more than it benefits us. Candlelit Sanctum is our battlefield for going first. We want to get that conquer before our opponents can really contest it. It'll also help fix our pseudo card draw, so we can do Candlelit, look at the top two. If we see something that we want to play right now, we can just put them both on top, play Void Burrower, play the card we want to play, and that's pretty good. You could also look at the top two with Candlelit, bottom both of them, and then gamble with Void Burrower and just flip the top two blind. Or you could just not do Void Burrower and, just wait for next turn. Finally, our going second battlefield is going to be Minefield. Basically dissuading our opponents from coming onto our battlefield while we have a small, very small usefulness of conquering a minefield, which is to potentially put a Phoenix into the trash. I've been wanting to actually get rid of Minefield for something else, because a lot of the time you're just not going to discard something you want. For example, like in matchups where you need, let's say, Call the Weak or Falling Star, right? Playing Minefield and seeing a Call the Weak or a Falling Star just go straight to trash feels really bad. And admittedly, you can do Void Burrower first, but the situation kind of still remains the same, even though we get some benefit of playing or putting Immortal Phoenix into the base. It's a very, very, very small benefit. I think among all of the games I've played, I've only put an Immortal Phoenix into the trash off of Minefield like a handful of times, not even 5. And this is over the course of like tens, maybe hundreds, 100 of games. So I do want to play something else instead of Minefield. I just don't know what. My first thought was Forbidding Wastes, where if a unit defends alone, it gets -2. But at the same time, we're also not really going to be stacking onto battlefields. So when we conquer, our unit's going to go -2. And if we don't have a cheap unit to throw away, like a bird token, a carrion dredger, an honest broker, then it's going to feel really bad and it's going to hurt us as well. So I don't really know what I want to put over Minefield. Part of me was thinking Paper Tree, so that if they hold, we both get a rune. But I feel like hold decks would want to ramp arguably even more than we want to maintain runes on the board. So I'm not really sure if there's a better option over Minefield. I also want to note that these battlefields are also keeping into the consideration that my local Nexus Knights are best of 1 with sideboarding, which means that the battlefield selection is basically random. Because of that, I don't want to run Arena's Greatest because there's a chance I go second, which would kind of be anti-synergy. I also... It's harder to make use of a, going first, going second in a blind battlefield when it's best of one, so I just want 3, like, decent options. And I'm kind of okay playing any of these, going first or second. I guess Candlelit, I kind of would rather go first, of course, but it's not so bad if I go second, because I may be able to conquer the battlefield back or just take theirs, which in most situations their battlefield is also going to be fine to conquer. So moving into the 2-drops, I'm not going to go through everything, but I'll just point out the main changes. Talking about the 2-drops, I've dropped 3 Soaring Scouts and 3 Void Hatchlings in favor of 2 Infernos, 3 Carrion Dredger, and 1 extra Honest Broker. So I'll have a total of 3 Honest Brokers, and I am only running 8 2-drops. I think I showed the math in the previous video, but you have about an 82% chance to draw a 2-drop on turn 1, which includes, I believe, the first draw and the mulligan, I think. I don't remember the exact details, but 8 2-drops is enough. I could go for 9, but I don't necessarily believe that I want to see an extra 2-drop later in the game, more than I already am, which is a decent amount, all things considered. So the reason I cut Soaring Scout is later in the game, it's just not impactful enough. The extra rune is nice so that I can maintain a higher rune count, but having 1 might is a little rough right now, and it can't really contest battlefields on its own. And it's, even with help, it's kind of bad. I really would want to swing in with the 2-might unit if possible, or if I'm going to use a fodder unit, I would rather maintain a board presence, which segues straight into Carrion Dredger. Carrion Dredger is also a 1-might unit, but when it dies, I get a bird token, which means if they try to conquer over my Carrion, I can get a bird to swing back with, like, Cleave or Longsword or something like that. Whereas if I had the Soaring Scout, it just dies, I get a rune, and I kind of have to, like, play a long game. But I don't necessarily want to play a long game. Not that long, at least. So Carrion Dredger making the unit is quite nice. Void Hatchling, I cut. Now, Void Hatchling, it's a good unit in this deck. It was designed for this deck, right? Because what other cards or deck reveals cards from the top of their deck, right? The thing is that it's just a 2-might unit at the end of the day, and I don't want to see more than, like, 1 in a game, maybe 2 if it dies. I'd rather have more combat-focused utility, personally, so that's why I replaced them with Inferna. At the same time, I don't want to see 3 Infernas, I don't think. The Assault is nice, but after my turn ends, it's just a 1-might unit, which usually it would have done its job by then. So I think Inferno is a nice addition. It also it's sort of like a spell later in the game where you pay 2 energy to get a 3-might buff onto something that can't be defied, most notably, right? Because it's ambush, it's a unit. Ambush is quite nice, but at the same time, its disadvantages are Vex and what's the one battlefield? Rockfall Path. So, there's trade-offs, but I think in my testing, Inferno has felt quite good. There are some flex spots that I am considering. So if we go back to the deck list, I took out... what did I take out? I basically had these 2 flex spots that I didn't really know what to do. They used to be spells with, like, Sacrifice, Death Grip. I'm blanking on the other ones, but after taking those out, I figured maybe I want more units because it's kind of hard to maintain a board presence. I ended up going with Rek'sai and Sharkling. One of my testing versions included 2 Kaisas, but Kaisa felt a little slow, oddly enough. It's 1 extra energy compared to Rek'Sai, but it gets to draw a card, but it's also the same might as Rek'Sai attacking. It was a weird trade-off that I wasn't sure if I liked. Uh, and playing it off the top was surprisingly expensive. Like 4 is surprisingly expensive in this Rek'Sai deck because of how often you have to recycle runes, especially if you don't draw any seals. So I ended up not liking Kaisa as much as I thought I would. Sharkling, I only drawn once or twice in my games in testing, but in the times that I did draw it, it did feel quite good because 5 might accelerated for the cost of a Kaisa unaccelerated, and I guess a power too, but 5 might attacking is just really strong. And similar to Inferna, you can't counter that. Well, I guess it would have been played already, but whatever. Rek'Sai, a second copy in the main. My friends tell me that I need to make more use of its second ability, or I guess it's non-keyworded text, where friendly units played other than from my hand have accelerate. The situation doesn't come up very often. I don't necessarily want to accelerate off the top unless I'm in like a dire situation where I need to score points. I can accelerate Immortal Phoenixes if I kill a unit with a spell, but again, that situation actually hasn't come up as often as I thought it would, so I'm not too concerned about that. But just also having units that don't cost power is nice because half of this deck costs power. Right, the Immortal Phoenixes, the Dariuses, the Vise, the Seals, the Longswords, the Cull, Falling Star, Hidden Blade, Salvage, Void Rush, Void Seeker. These all cost power, and that's basically half my deck. I think more than half even at that. So just having units with good utility that don't cost power is really nice, and that's why I've kind of ended up on these. I don't necessarily believe I want 2 Sharklings, but I also don't necessarily believe I want an extra Rek'Sai in the main deck, but I've kind of just settled on this for now as like a toolboxy kind of option. Notably as well, I've added a Void Seeker and a Longsword. Longsword is a nice way to get might bonuses mid-combat without getting defied. Void Seeker is just good to get over 4 might units. There's a decent amount of them. And also has action speed, which Falling Star does not. Void Seeker is good against stuff like Vex. I guess other Rek'Sais technically if they're attacking. Action speed against Stellacorn, maybe. Against Diana's Void Seeker's not bad. And it draws 1, which is nice. So, yeah, Void Seeker, just the extra burn utility is really nice. I've been enjoying having it in the deck because it does usually come up and it's like, oh wow, I'm glad I have this to, get over a 4 might unit. Talking about the sideboard, I have 2 against the odds, 2 salvage, 2 ashes, 1 drag under, and 1 Bryn here Thunder Song. Against the odds is just good against any deck that goes slightly wide. So like Azir, or to an extent Azir, but not really. But like if they're playing Victor tokens or like a mirror Rek'Sai with the Swarm variant, against the odds can be quite good. I think even against 2 units, paying 2 energy for 4 might swing is pretty good. And it's not a card that people really like remember as a thing, to be honest. So yeah, sideboard is pretty solid, even against 2 units. Plus 4 might for 2 energy is a decent rate. It's like the same rate as On Guard against the Syl unit. or even discipline. So yeah, pretty solid. Salvage, I mean, gear hate, stuff against like Aurora. That's really the big boogeyman, but against equipment decks like Azir, also good. Notably, it has action speed as well, so it's a nice combat trick. You can leave mana open for it. Against Azir, for example, they could move in trying to contest a unit on your battlefield. You play Salvage, they lose like their Brutalizer or their Doran Shield, and now the math is potentially a little more in your favor. Same thing against Aurelia. You know, you can just like take off their GA or their Zonias and then try to kill it. Ashe, I've mainly played this against Aurora just to make sure they don't have it. Or it's like another way to deal with Aurora, which is pull it out of their hand before they can play it. I think I'm over prioritizing the Aurora matchup because that's like the main deck that one of my friends plays, so I'm not totally sure. But it could be useful in other decks where I identify that like, oh, they have one specific thing that they can do. I gotta be careful around it. Ability, I guess it could be countered technically, but at least I get the unit, which is nice. It can also just like pull out cards. Like let's say I'm playing against a Diana who's getting close to winning. I could play Ashe, pull out their Thousand Tail or pull out their Hui, and try to fight on from there. Drag Under, I wanted something to get over bigger units like Aurelia's, Fiora decks, set decks to an extent. Just basically anything that plays taller units. It has synergy with the Void Burrower and Void Rush legend and signature spell because it costs 2 less if it's played from anywhere other than a battlefield. The only concern I have with the card is that it's only unit at a battlefield. Again, trade-offs. I could play Vengeance, which I actually have right next to me because I'm not sure if I want to play Vengeance because it costs 2 power. But Vengeance is just kill a unit. No conditions, just kill a unit. But it's not action speed or anything. I'm kind of not sure if I want to play Dragon or if I want to play Vengeance. So I got to think about that some more. Bryn here is something I am considering against spell heavy decks or spell slinger decks like Aurelia, Diana, to an extent Annie, because they're always going to have 2 runes up on your turn. The thing is that it serves a similar purpose to Ashe in the sense that they both are meant to close the game and they both try to shut your opponent down. Now, I know they're not exactly the same. Bryn here just completely locks them out of playing spells. Admittedly, they still have a window to play reactions before the effect completely goes through. But part of me thinks in a perfect world, you can play Ashe and then figure out if you can win or not. Whereas Bryn here, you play it, they may like do like a last minute hurrah before you can win. So they feel very similar. I'm just not sure. I'm not sure how big of a difference they both are compared to each other. I could totally see cutting the Bryn here's for this Vengeance that I have here. I could also see, yeah, I could totally see cutting Bryn here for a Vengeance in the sideboard. With Ashe, at least you can see their hand and pull something out, which is important against like Aurora, or I don't know how useful it is against LeBlanc baited hook, but could be useful there as well. So moving on to, so I have some flex spots because I'm not playing the very common Sacrifice, Death Grip, and I've seen lists that even run 3 Cleave, which I'm just like, I don't know if you need 3. So these are just cards I'm considering. Kaisa, I kind of explained before that I don't run it, but it's still like on paper, it's just not a bad unit. So I don't know if I actually don't like it because it's too expensive or if it's for some other reason that I can't articulate. Pike Dockside Butcher is a very interesting card. You can hide it and then reveal it for another power. So it'd be zero energy, 2 power for 4 might swing at a battlefield. But it's also 2 power, which is rough. But it does add a layer of complexity because it's an extra hidden card that your opponent has to be aware of. Currently, the only hidden card in the deck is Hidden Blade, so I could see that being useful. You could just also play it for 3 energy and 1 power. I'm not convinced, if I'm going to be honest, with playing it like that. Also, because if you kind of look right below it, there's also a Rengar, which would be a similar resource cost with 3 energy and 1 power, but it has 3 might always and assault 2. It also has a reaction and can be played to a battlefield you're attacking, which is not exactly ambush, but let me get that in a second. Pike versus Rengar, I feel like Pike is better if you want more hidden synergy or for your opponent to worry more about hidden stuff. But like the turn after you play it, it's just a 2 might unit, and depending on how you paid for it, doesn't sound very worth it. For a similar cost, you can get a 3 might unit, which can also have assault 2 and reaction speed, which means you could play it on your opponent's turn to develop. You can also reveal Pike as from hidden as well, but you can't act on it. Whereas with Rengar, I guess you can't act on it either. Okay, never mind. But Rengar pouncing is interesting because it's kind of like ambush, but it can also be played to your base. Right? Ambush must be played to a battlefield where you have units, not necessarily one you're attacking. But like the reaction speed is interesting. I saw Prismat when he was playing in Hartford. His opponent, I think, was an Azir player. The Azir player, I forget what he did, but he did something which gave a reaction window, and then Prismat just played Rengar in base. It might have been like the Azir player moved into a battlefield, and then Prismat played Rengar in response to his base, which is really cool because as the Azir player, you're only considering what's on his board, and you're not thinking, oh, he's gonna develop a unit out of nowhere, and then suddenly you have to worry about the swing back of this Rengar that has 5 might on his hack. And that's kind of scary, right? Because now you might have overcommitted to the battlefield. So it's definitely something on my radar. Only problem is it costs power. And like I said before, this deck costs so much power, it's crazy. Ferris Forerunner, I mean, I think everyone knows how good this card is. Obviously, it's not good into purple, and it's not good into LeBlanc. But LeBlanc isn't too popular in my meta. And purple, while it is popular, you also have to remember that when they play Starcrossed, they also have to bounce a unit back. So the total energy and power of Starcrossed plus unit compared to Forerunner is usually close to equal. Now, granted, the value might be a little better for the purple player because they might bounce a Fizz back to their hand or like an ambush unit or something. But I think it still could deserve a spot in the deck. I just don't know where. That's my version of Immortal Phoenix right now. But I did want to point out that I stumbled across a list that basically only runs Immortal Phoenix as a unit in the deck. It went 73rd place in the Season 3 Jinan. I'm not sure if it's Jinan or Jinan City Challenge from June 20th. And it's basically a full control style Rek'sai deck with Immortal Phoenix as its only units to try to win. And it's really interesting because it's pure removal. Hextech Ray, Blood Money to get rid of the small units, and Piercing Light. Falling Star to get rid of the 3 might stuff. Void Seeker for 4 mites. And then for bigger stuff, you have Blast of Power, which I'm surprised is not like a Vengeance, but I guess action speed is useful. But yeah, Blast of Power, Imperial Decree, Drag Under, and Ruination is ways to get over the bigger stuff. And then you also have 2 Shadow's Call, which is really interesting. Because you're not really going to have units to play this on. Notably, Shadow's Call does not let you play Phoenix from trash. It just gives the unit temporary. So the spell is not killing the unit directly. It's the temporary that's killing it. But draw 2 is nice. So not sure how great it is, but surely it's not that bad. Vanguard Armory as another way to kind of claw back into the game once it gets late. And 3 seals because there's a decent amount of red costs. Although I wonder if you could fit in like a yellow seal in here instead because of all the yellow costs. Not sure. Looking at a sideboard, we got an extra Piercing Light, which makes sense if you need to get over 2 might units. 2 extra salvages, because salvage smite is interesting. Good against LeBlanc. I guess it's extra burn if you really need it over, let's say, the blood monies. But it costs power, which kind of sucks. So I'm not sure. I think it's good, but again, I don't really know. Imperial Decree, again, getting over big units, and extra Ruination to wipe the board if you really need to. Yeah, it's a very interesting list. I would consider playing this in testing for fun. I'm not convinced just looking at the list. Because you also need to draw into Phoenixes, and if you don't get there, you're inevitably gonna lose, I would imagine. So yeah. Hope you enjoyed a small little deck tech update on Immortal Phoenix. I'm gonna pull this up one more time for my current deck lists. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.